When you are planning your wedding, you intuitively understand that florals are one of the most emotionally powerful design elements of a wedding because it so closely and openly reflects your personal tastes and preferences. The tricky thing about floral design is that while everyone generally tends to appreciate the beauty and the visual appeal that they bring to a wedding day, it's also just as easy to relegate it to being little more than a finishing touch, something that is beautiful but not necessarily essential. And this is where I think that floral design and its impact in your wedding photos is heavily misunderstood. So in this video, I'll be sharing with you about how floral design plays a much bigger role in both how your day feels and photographs. Well, hello there, good people, and thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Rachel, and I'm the owner and lead photographer at Baskin Creative Co., a fine art wedding photography studio serving brides across Canada and destinations beyond. This channel is where I help couples like you make confident wedding photography decisions while planning a wedding that feels intentional and cohesive and that is beautifully documented. So if you want guidance that goes deeper than simply looking at Pinterest boards and saving a bunch of inspirational pictures, then subscribe to my channel because you're in the right place. So as I mentioned in the introduction of this video, we'll be talking all things floral design, and not just as decoration, but as one of the biggest factors in how your wedding day feels and ultimately how it photographs. Floral design plays a much bigger role than most couples realize, and in this video I'll be sharing with you 7 points to keep in mind as you begin looking into floral designers and understanding the role that your florals play when it comes to your special day. The first point that I want to talk about is why florals matter more than couples expect. Now, you may be thinking to yourself that it's readily apparent as to why floral design is so important, because it serves as decor and helps the wedding feel and look pretty. And while there is an element of truth to that, there is a deeper role that floral design serves on your wedding day. And it's that floral design is one of the first things your guests will see and emotionally respond to, even without realizing it. Before you walk down the aisle, and before your vows are exchanged, and before speeches are given, and before you dance the night away, your florals quietly set the tone. They shape the ceremony. They build the anticipation. They create the atmosphere and influence how elevated or grounded your entire wedding feels. And from a photography perspective, florals don't just fill space. They shape the environment that your entire wedding day unfolds in. Now, if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Florals create context, and context is what makes photos feel rich instead of falling flat. Now, this leads me to my second point, which is all about where your floral investment actually shows up, because I think this is where I see a lot of couples getting things a little bit mixed up. One of the biggest misconceptions that I think most couples subscribe to when it comes to floral design is that impact comes from quantity, that the more flowers you have, the more beautiful your wedding automatically becomes. And while I can easily see why couples most think that, the reality is that the impact of floral design comes from its placement. Florals show up most powerfully in ceremony installations and as focal points where guests naturally gather, and in areas that will appear repeatedly in your photos throughout the day. When florals are concentrated thoughtfully, they elevate the entire wedding, even if other areas are kept intentionally simple. The balance created between concentrated floral design and intentional restraint helps create a harmony in your wedding images that will always photograph magically. So instead of spreading your budget across dozens of small arrangements, focus instead on key areas that allow those moments to really shine. The key takeaway here is to remember this. Your floral investment will have the most impact when it has been designed thoughtfully and placed intentionally. Now, speaking of intentional floral placement, this brings us to point number 3, and it's all about the ceremony and what matters and what doesn't, and why the ceremony is one of the most important spaces to get right when it comes to your floral design. The ceremony is one of the most photographed parts of your wedding day, and so it stands to reason that this is where your floral design will have the greatest emotional impact. So with this information in mind, I believe that it's then worth asking the question, well, what actually matters when it comes to ceremony floral design? My answer to that question as a professional wedding photographer with almost a decade of photography experience is three things. Number one, scale that feels intentional. Simply laying down a bunch of pretty flowers with no forethought, no vision, no planning, no purpose, and hoping that the flower's prettiness factor alone will be enough to communicate all that you're hoping for is a fool's errand. You need to be intentional with your design and strategic in your decisions in order to see the maximum impact that your floral design can have on your wedding day. Number two, framing the couple without overwhelming them. The best way that I can think to explain this point is with this analogy. If your ceremony was a Hollywood movie, then your floral design would be supporting characters in that they help tell the story without commandeering all of the attention. All eyes should be on you, and their role is merely to enhance that. The impact of your ceremony floral design should never dwarf your presence within your ceremony floral design. Point number three, designs that actually complement the environment around you. To sum it up in one word, cohesion. You want your ceremony floral design to look complementary with the environment that you are getting married in. The execution of your floral design should feel like it stems from one vision and tells one story that ultimately photographs beautifully. Now, having talked about what actually matters most when it comes to ceremony floral design, I also think that it's worth discussing what matters far less than most couples expect. And speaking again as a professional wedding attender, who has photographed weddings for almost a decade, here is my list of three things that don't matter nearly as much as you think they would. Number one is overly intricate details that guests will never see. And because your guests won't see them, they will never fully appreciate them. If we return to the analogy of your ceremony floral design being a supporting cast member, then it's important to keep in mind that while there is certainly value in investing in beautiful design that supports the story of your wedding day, the main star of the show is still you and your partner, and the design is merely the frame in which your love story plays out. Number two is symmetry for the sake of symmetry. My perfectionist heart cannot believe the words that are about to come out of my mouth. That simply having symmetry for the sake of symmetry is a little dull. Now, don't get me wrong, symmetry can be a powerful design tool that is hard-hitting and has impact that leaves a lasting impression. However, there is something to be said about the visual appeal of imbalance and what it can bring. So allow yourself to be curious and maybe even a little playful when crafting your ideal ceremony floral design. And point number three is florals that feel disconnected from the space that they're in. Again, the word of the day is, and say it with me, folks, cohesion. A ceremony installation should feel like it belongs in the space and not simply like it was dropped into the space. Your ceremony floral design should feel like it's both integrated and natural, because that's when everything photographs more beautifully and effortlessly. Now, for point number four, I want to shift gears and talk about something that influences a lot of floral decisions, and that is Pinterest and sometimes Instagram. Pinterest and Instagram, they show you moments, but they seldom show you movement. And here's what I mean. On social media or on a search engine like Pinterest, you're only ever shown florals at their most pristine, often before guests arrive and before the weather changes and before the day actually begins to unfold in real time. But here's the thing, real weddings require florals that will hold up for the duration of the entire wedding day and photograph well from multiple angles and transition seamlessly if they are being repurposed from ceremony to reception. Your wedding floral design should work for more than just one perfect moment of your wedding day. It needs to serve the full story of your wedding day, because as your wedding photographer, I'm not just capturing one moment. I'm documenting the entire experience from beginning to end, and I need your floral design to stay the course with me. Now, for point number 5, I would like us to talk about how florals actually affect the way your photos feel, because that's the obvious place where their impact becomes more apparent. I believe that florals influence your images in 4 subtle but very powerful ways. They soften backgrounds, making them look creamy and blurry, and they add depth and dimension and feeling in a way that only florals can. They can be used to frame faces and bodies in surprising and interesting ways, and they can help spaces feel intentionally crafted and put together rather than empty and still. And when you work with a talented floral designer who brings your vision to life flawlessly and with excellence, your photos feel immersive, like you're stepping back into the day rather than just looking at it. Now, speaking of working with floral designers, for point number 6, I want us to shift gears again and to think about the types of questions that you will need to ask your prospective floral designer. If you are in the process of speaking with a florist, I have a list of 4 questions that I would encourage you to consider asking, because I think that the answers to these questions will tell you a lot about what you need to know about that floral designer and about how they approach their work. So with that being said, my humble recommendation on the questions that you should be asking are: number 1, how will designs transition throughout the day? If your intention is to repurpose any of your floral design, then your chosen floral designer should already have a plan in place for how they typically transition florals from one location to another while minimizing damage to the design. This well-oiled plan should be something that they are able to easily implement and execute on your wedding day. Question number 2 is: what elements can be reused intentionally? At its core, this question speaks to the collaborative relationship that should exist between you and your chosen floral designer. Because if it is your intention to repurpose any element of your floral design, then the onus is on you to communicate that vision to your floral designer. And similarly, once the floral designer is aware of your design preferences, then they can proceed with putting together a design brief with repurposing in mind that they can submit to you, and together you can begin crafting a design that is both intentional and impactful. Question number 3, how do you design for both beauty and longevity? The answer to this question is key because it tells you whether or not the floral designer is thinking just about arrangements or whether they are thinking about your wedding day experience as a whole. A seasoned floral designer always sees the value of the full wedding experience and will do everything within their power to ensure that your floral design is not compromised in any way. And that is exactly what you want. Now, as we draw to the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with one final thought, which is point number 7. And this is something that I have seen done consistently in the more elevated weddings that I've had the privilege of photographing. And it's the idea that restraint is a part of elegance. Some of the most beautiful weddings that I've had the privilege of photographing are not always the most floral heavy ones, but they are almost always the most thoughtful. When florals are designed with intention and purpose and used impactfully, every image feels refined, more cohesive, and more timeless. And with that, we have come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I trust that the information here was helpful and that you feel more educated and empowered as you think about how florals shape your wedding day. If you want more guidance just like this as you plan your wedding, from design choices to how everything photographs together seamlessly, I share helpful information just like this weekly inside of my newsletter. It's called The Velvet Envelope, and you can sign up for it by clicking on the link below. And if you're planning a wedding and you would like to inquire about my availability, you can do so by clicking on the link in the description box, and I'll get back to you as soon as I receive your message. Thank you for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next video. Bye.